Is it me you're looking for? I don't like me either. The other day I had Chipotle and I got one of those Blackberry Izzy thingies and I didn't finish it and now it's just sitting on my desk, which is to say I need to clean my desk, which has nothing to do with anything. Let's answer some questions. When do you deliberately shake the camera certain amounts? Whenever I friggin' feel like it is actually the answer. It just depends on what you're going for. What do you want your audience to be feeling at that time? And then do the things that you want to do. Don't, look for rules. I mean, knowing them is nice, but do what you think is right for the moment in the scene, test things, see how it feels to you, and then go from there. I do it usually when I want to add some energy to a scene or enhance energy to a scene, or if there's an actor who's doing a fight scene who's not very good at doing that fight scene. So when you're first starting out and you're having your friends do a fight scene, having the camera have movement to it helps hide some of the imperfections in trying to construct a scene like that. Maybe if there was an explosion, I'll shake the camera so that you feel what's happening in front of you, or if somebody gets punched, I'll jostle it a little bit. Sometimes I've done that in the past. It just depends, but not always. It depends on the style of the thing that I'm doing. I've done a fight scene, everything from on a gimbal, very fluid, to very shaky cam. It just depends. And I usually prefer the more fluid approach, or if handheld, just a little handheld, not the crazy Jason Bourne style, although I love me some Jason Bourne movies. How do you go about writing a story around a scene idea you have or a particular style of shot that you want to do? I get those all the time with no story and I'm not sure what to do with them. Massive films, like Indiana Jones were started that way, where it's what sort of things would be really fun to do in this particular type of film that we're making, and then you just adjust from there. I've been a part of conversations with larger things that were constructed that way, and know of a bunch of others that were constructed that way. Here's the movie that we're doing, and you're writing it, and we want this sort of sequence and we want that sort of sequence. Well, why does our character get to there? How does our character get to there? And that starts to inform the story, and then you can start extracting theme and meaning from there, and then you can reverse engineer the whole thing, go back and make sure everything's cohesive and everything's servicing that story that you ultimately come up with and the themes that you ultimately come up with. There's a ton of way-ins to formulating your story that you want to tell, and I don't really think there's a bad way in. The only negative is if your focus is always on those sequences and doesn't hinge on the story eventually that comes from that initial kernel of an idea that leads you to the story and the character. That, in the end, needs to be paramount over all other things. Who is your dream cast for a thriller movie? Big names only. Emily Blunt, Brie Larson, Chris Evans, Jake Gyllenhaal, Michael B. Jordan, and I'm going to stick with that. That's what I got for now. About to film my first short film. How can I have quality production value on a low budget? Well, that's what Film Riot's just about across the board. It's all about constructing that value with what you have. You can go without lights and still have that value. I think the main thing in getting really solid production value, even with absolutely no money whatsoever, is location, wardrobe, and camera placement. So if the camera placement is very confident, your blocking is very confident, the wardrobe works really well for your scene, and the location works really well and is interesting and visual, you can get something that feels like money when there is absolutely no money involved whatsoever. So that means a location with really good light. That means scouting to make sure you know the time of day that's best for the best light for that location, and then thinking about the wardrobe to go along with the character and location as well. I personally hinge on those things when we have very little budget to try to make it feel as high quality as possible. I'm writing a short film and I'm finding myself wanting to use a lot of parentheticals with the dialogue, but I've heard you don't want to use this too much. How aggressive with them are you when writing your short films? If you need to use those a ton, that's a problem with your writing, because you're not conveying what it is that you want through your words and how you're setting this up. If you write it properly, when I get to the dialogue, I know exactly how that dialogue should be delivered, or at least in the the right tone and emotion because of how you've set everything up before that. So I only really put parentheticals in there when it's direction that's needed, when it's not really obvious and needs to be punctuated in a very specific way, which is definitely more rare than not. Can you talk a little bit about how you got the cast for Ballistic? Casting director, friends of friends, huge dump truck full of cash. Thanks. Love you. The entire cast was made up of people that I've either worked with before or have wanted to work with for a while. I pretty much wrote the script with everyone who had speaking roles in mind, except for Cambry. We had to find her, and we did that through a casting process, an online casting call, and we got submissions and then went through all those and was able to find her that way. We actually did an episode on how we found her, which you can find in the notes below. Everybody else, like Hannah, I had worked with before. We've known each other for years, and all of our bad guys were made up of the stunt team, which was brought in by Josh and Omid, who are two excellent stuntmen themselves and producers, and Josh is also a director. And we've been talking for a long time about wanting to do something together. And then you have Graham, who I've worked with in the past, and then you have Mark and Rachel, who had been in Justin's films before, and I thought they were fantastic. So I contacted them, and thankfully they said yes. So it was a mixture of casting, friends that I've worked with before, friends that we've been wanting to work together for a long time, and friends of friends who I admired from other work. Any plans to shoot a project on real film? Shooting on film is something I've wanted to do for the show for a long time. I've shot on film in the past, and I've wanted to do it for the show and show that whole process, and hopefully we'll do that this year. We'll see. But as far as using it for an actual project, like a short film or even a feature film, I really doubt I would do it for a short film unless it was specifically for Film Riot, and that was the reason there. But for a feature, I definitely would if the story called for it, if I thought that it really needed to be shot on film. Otherwise, I would probably just go digital. I love both avenues. Digital has caught up and looks gorgeous. I mean, just look at Deacon's work, and I still love film as well. The aesthetic that you get from that still is great, so it would just depend on the story. Last question, best part of filmmaking? An audience reacting to this world that you created to take them out of this one for a little while and just enjoy what's in front of them. That is the absolute best for me, when somebody can just immerse themselves in what's happening in front of them and just unwind for that period of time. I just really adore creating that and creating an experience like the ones that I had when I was a kid, where you're just transported to another place and you're gifted these crazy emotions that you get to feel during that period of time while in a totally safe place. That is by far the best aspect of all of it, but pretty much everything top to bottom is pretty freaking great. Domain.com is all your website needs, including .com and .net domain names, and intuitive website builders so you can start creating your identity online. They're affordable, reliable, and have the tools that you need to start building that website and sharing your ideas on a professional website. No domain extension is going to help you tell your story like a .com or .net domain name. And if you want to brand yourself online, Domain.com has over 300 domain extensions to fit your needs from .club to .space. And of course, they're giving you 15% off when you use the coupon code FilmRiot at Domain.com's checkout. So when you think domain names, think Domain.com.
Logo.
So that's it for today, which means it's time for my suggestion of the week. And this is going to be two things that I've loved recently. First one is Zelda Breath of the Wild, which I just got a Switch recently and grabbed that right away. I'm a huge Zelda fan. Ever since the original Nintendo days, I just love them. Ocarina of Time is one of the greatest games ever made. And Breath of the Wild is really high up there as far as my list of Zelda games. So if you dig Zelda and you have a Switch, definitely check that out. And for movies, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, just saw it. It is just so great across the board, top to bottom. The animation style is fantastic. Storytelling is really great, and the performances are excellent. So definitely check that out. And until next time, don't forget to write, shoot, edit, repeat.